Hello, this is a review for Vectorworks on the 17th of January 2014. This was to basically recap what we've previously done for the tools, as there were some new ones to be introduced in this session. The image shown is the rectangle tool being adapted in a new form, with the top panel on the right side with the rectangles with the little dots is to show the rectangles being moved around by their points rather than just you drawing them. Therefore I tried to attempt this myself. I found this a very easy task, and I think it would be easy to make plans this way. The next tool is similar to the parallel tool. However, this enables you to zigzag across and be more of a free hand by going diagonally and in any angle, whereas the parallel tool restricted your access. The next tool shown is the selection tool, rectangular selection mode. This enables you to edit any shape and edit the corners or any feature of this. So I could then change the amount of sides it has by reducing this to 3, 4 or any number. The next tool briefly talked about was the eyedropper tool. Like Photoshop, it enables you to select an area of an image and take the colour from this and then apply it to your recent object. The same applies to Vectorworks. However, I believe we will not be using this tool in Vectorworks as much because we will not be doing materials properly rendered as we will in Photoshop. In this image it shows the Select Similar tool. I found this tool very fun to play with, as it is very useful, having never used this before. For example, it enables you to select an object, but it also selects other objects which are similar to this, as shown in the next example. Although I kind of feel this tool will not be as useful if I wanted to separately select an object and edit this individually. This tool does inhibit this. Whilst the group was having problems and being attended to, I then wanted to try another little tool, as shown on the left side, where the rotation looking button I actually played with to then change the whole dimension of things. It transforms a 2D image into a 3D perspective with the X, Y and Z axis. I found this very easy to find the hotkeys and then use this quickly. It's a very efficient and easy tool to use to see another perspective of your 2D drawings. Therefore I feel I'll be using this tool more in the future, because I like to quickly see how it looks from other angles to see if I have the right drawing. This next tool, as shown in the image below, is extremely useful. I thought it was brilliant how it selects an area you want to cut and it just deletes it, as shown in the next image on the slide. Unlike Photoshop, however, the eraser tool in there only allows you to hand delete everything, so it takes longer and it's not as efficient to getting the end result done. Therefore I think Vectorworks' eraser tool here is actually more efficient. Similarly to the eraser tool, the above button is the scissor tool. This enables you to also cut a segment of a line or any object, as shown in the below image. This is like the scissor tool in Photoshop, however I've always struggled to use that tool. In Vectorworks this seems pretty much self-explanatory, as it highlights the area you want to delete. Yet the tool I think I would prefer is the eraser tool, as it takes out more of what you want to delete rather than doing each little part. Still using the scissor tool, I found I wanted to play with this more, because I managed to delete areas and find out what was left behind, and in this image shows the leftover parts of the squares that I originally had. I found it really interesting how it only leaves segments of areas which have been cut away from where the rectangles overlapped, and I think this would be very useful to learn in the future, as I wouldn't want to delete all my work that I have previously done, so it takes more care. Moving on, as an interior architecture student, we find ourselves having to redraw lines consistently to make plans. Therefore, this is why the offset tool was introduced, as this creates a parallel object from a selected object, meaning this tool can be used on lines, arcs, rectangles, polylines, ovals, polygons, walls and round walls, and it has two modes, offset by distance and offset to a point. This is very useful because it can quicken up the process of repeating the parallel lines of a wall. For instance, we do not have to use the parallel line tool, which we will have to do for 4 walls or how many walls there are. Therefore, using this tool we can just simply put in details by editing it in the top panel and then this does it for us, and all we have to do is click. It's a very efficient process, which I think we'll be using. Although when I actually came to play with the offset tool, I found I was having difficulty trying to get what the others were trying to achieve also, by actually only creating one wall that was 150 millimeters inwards to represent the wall's units. Unfortunately, as shown on the image here, my walls started coming inside more and more to one point. I did not know why this was happening, and it was very frustrating at this point. Although overall I thought this particular image was actually quite interesting, with how it was making a staircase from a plan view, which I thought I could use for future projects if I needed to do a staircase on a 2D image for my future plans. So having this experiment go wrong, I felt I actually learnt a great deal. This was an actual mistake on this image shown here, but after keep repeating what I was creating from the last image, I actually really like this overall finish from being a 2D object. This is because it's giving the illusion of there being a perspective drawing to one point. It's got a one-point perspective, and the lines combining, making this black and white contrast, gives this look of you're looking to one point. Still using the offset tool, I didn't actually achieve what I wanted to achieve to begin with. As shown on the image here, I should have got this rectangle with a smaller rectangle within this. This was using the distance as shown at the top as 1. However, I did not know this at the time and actually put 20. So I was creating random designs, and there were also other variations you could change, like the smoothness of the curve as shown here, which you can untick if you do not want this. Once I did achieve what I needed to, I then started to play with the offset distance number more by changing this to 10. This then created this shape as shown in the image below, where it is a nice smooth curved border, and I really like this effect, showing how Vectorworks can be used to make a really creative design. Meanwhile, the group was still trying to understand the offset tool. This is when I went off to have a go at myself at understanding the importance of the offset tool itself, and learning about the offset original to a point option that you tick. I found out that this is rather inside the rectangle itself or on the outside if it is not ticked. And this is how you can create a funky shape. Moving away from the offset tool, we then looked at the lines themselves and the panel above this, as it shows all the variations of how you can have these lines. As in the image shown here, it has 3 little boxes that have another few little boxes underneath an arrow, showing how many lines will be repeated. Next was to change the settings by going on the Move by Point Settings panel. This enabled you to change the amount of duplicates. I went for 4, as this would keep it simple at this point. And it was also important to tick the Retain box, as this would only keep a certain amount of lines in order as well, instead of them being everywhere. I then decided to play around with it more while the group was busy by trying parallel lines instead of just one, and still using the same tool on the amount of duplicates of 4. This created this image here, and it is very efficient to make numbers of lines quickly. I then wanted to play even more by seeing what the second box from the previous box I just used, with the 3 boxes under the arrow, to see what this did. And I found, still using parallel lines, that it created a mass of parallel lines that were just immaculate. Still using this line tool, I then made a discovery that if you clicked diagonally when you had to click to make the lines appear, then I found it actually changed the direction of where they were layered. Instead of being horizontal, they actually were diagonally in this case, which I found was very useful, instead of them being just constructed in one line of the axis. Meaning that I feel they are very versatile, and I can use these later on when creating a plan or vertical drawing. Recapping on the actual meaning of class and layers, what we learnt in the session, was that layers are the building of floors. So you have your basement, your first floor, your second floor, etc., etc. And then classes are the individual objects and things that go inside the layer. And each class can be edited only for a selected floor of that layer. Therefore, it is crucial that you select the walls for example, and then select what layer or floor you want to edit. If you select wall for the second floor but intended the first floor, this would affect the second floor rather than the first. Then you do not want this. Therefore, it is crucial that the green tick is where you want it to be and want to. So for our example, we had ground floor and first floor. We were just keeping it simple, so as it was the first introduction into plan drawing for 2D views. So far I felt I was very confident in what we were doing, following the instructions by Anna, and how simple it was to actually create shapes with these tools on the left side. So therefore I thought the whole process of Vectorworks is very simple when you have the measurements and everything needed to create a plan. During the session we had some nifty little tips on how we can do different things in different ways. For example, the next tool we found to use, instead of trying to get our rectangle exactly in the center and changing the shape size by using the object info panel, then we actually instead dragged the rectangle tool and did not click on this but used the tab tool to then change the variables as shown in the image here from 2260 to then make it 4000. This was actually a lot easier and quicker than just going all the way to the object info and then changing it and then going back. However, here I struggled to try and get the rectangle in the center, therefore I just found it easier to use the object info bar as it was right there to just change it. Going through the workshop, I actually got confused at this point as I couldn't see where it was leading, as we had to make a circle fit the inside of the rectangle, making it into a shape almost, and this was a bit confusing where we had to select it and not knowing what to do with it. Next, we were introduced to a new panel of tools. It was the modify options. We were introduced into going onto the send option and then it's showing how to send to front, send forward, send to back, send backward. This enables the object selected will be going backwards, allowing another object to be seen rather than that. And I found this is very useful. This is the same tool used on Photoshop and Illustrator, so I already have a bit of back. But then we were gradually being introduced another neat little trick that I find would enhance us by going again onto the Modify tool panel and clicking Add Surface. What I found really neat about this tool is by adding surface, it actually combines the objects together, making it one instead of two objects. So you can move this around and it would be one selection, which will be very useful to creating any shape you wanted by making a load of shapes and then deleting parts of it that you don't want and then making it as one. The next part was to actually use the offset tool again, and I had some trouble with this by not pressing the duplicate and offset option in the duplication section. This made my offset go outwards and not be able to see the background image, and also by not sending the first image that we combined by pressing Add Surface, not sending it to the back enabled it not to be able to see the offset shape. Therefore, I changed this to duplicate and offset and it then eventually worked. I feel this program is about experimentations half the time, because if you do not get it right the first time you can always like that image and not want to change it. However, in this case we needed to create a wall, therefore I did not like what I had achieved and managed to make it correct by following the proper instructions. And this image shows what it should actually look like, with it should have an actual center and have a wall around. I really like how this was constructed and how easy it really is after learning the process, and I think this can be easily done next time. However, we were still not done with the plan drawing itself. We needed to get rid of this white space inside, as this was not part of the plan, as everything needs to go inside. It does not look as professional. Therefore, to do this we found another tool which removes the area beneath overlapping surface objects, and it cuts holes in objects, as shown in the image here, which clips the surface. This tool unfortunately did not work here because I had many layers from trying to offset it previously. However, the next image shows how it should look professionally by removing the white area, and you can see the background being empty and white. And this is what a proper plan should look like. The last task of the day was just simply try and look at how we can make a wall seem to represent a wall by using colour. So going to the attribute panel, we can change the fill of the wall to be black, and this is what we ended up with. It's looking a nice black and white contrast, and it clearly defines what is the solid object. We can also change this by using hatching, which is another selection, but instead we use solid here, as it will just be easier to make it simpler to make a plan.